Video review.
Developer Monolith has made quite a name for itself making moody, creepy games like Alien vs. Predator, Condemned, and the original Fear. Fear, which stands for First Encounter Assault Recon, was a fantastic and scary first-person shooter, and the sequel, Fear 2 Project Origin, revisits the same territory. But it doesn't come close to capturing the same freaky magic. Yet while you won't get the same kind of thrills and chills, you will get a solid shooter with a small handful of jump-out-of-your-seat moments and a cool slow-motion mechanic. So no, Fear 2 isn't as special as the original, but it's still a worthwhile experience for FPS lovers that like a little atmosphere. But first off, a spoiler alert. If you aren't familiar with the first Fear story or want to leave everything as a surprise, you may just want to sit this video review out. But for the rest of you, Fear 2 continues the story of the first game and starts just prior to the huge explosion that devastates the city. Alma, the formidable psychic from the first game, is still up to her old tricks, and the blast is hardly the culmination of her fury. This time around, you play as Beckett, a member of Delta Force who's chasing after Genevieve Aristide, Armacham Technologies' president.
Where's the rest of the team? We don't have much time. You and your squad are the only hope of stopping Alma.
As is the way of these things, you'll get more than you've bargained for, and after a bit of, shall we say, reconstructive surgery, Alma will be playing around with your mind. You'll see ghostly visions and have bloody hallucinations as you shoot your way through Armacham personnel and replicant soldiers. It's too bad that the story can't touch that of the first Fear, simply because there isn't much in the way of mystery. Alma is now a known commodity, and there's not a whole lot to keep you connected to the events on screen. It just becomes a series of horror movie and video game cliches, only the usual creepy black-haired little girl is now a creepy black-haired woman. Throw in some stilted dialogue, the standard subway level, a few bad attempts at humor, and a disappointing ending, and it just can't compare to Monolith's past spookfests. Your psychic connection to Alma doesn't just give you weird visions, it also lets you enter reflex time, which slows time to a crawl for a short period so you can shoot up your enemies in a sort of bullet time ballet. Just as before, it looks all sorts of awesome to watch bullets whiz by and grenades explode while you're in reflex time. It also accentuates the goriness of the firefights. Blood splatters everywhere, and the responsive ragdoll physics will cause enemy corpses to fly around in all sorts of fun ways. There are a good number of weapons that give you some creative freedom in how to shed blood, but they're all pretty standard, though the hammerhead is pretty cool because it shoots neon bolts into enemies and pins them to the wall behind. Still, this can make for some awesome action sequences, and most of them are scripted really well. You will shoot your way through a variety of enclosed spaces just as in the first Fear, like an abandoned elementary school that's the highlight of the game. There's a lot more variety in the environments and enemies than before, however. Mutants called remnants roaming the streets will create clones of themselves, and abominations scurry about looking for the best attack angle. The outdoor levels are a little disappointing though, because they suffer from that age-old level design trick where all the rubble fell in such a way that keeps you on a very narrow path to your destination. Some other variety comes by way of a few mediocre turret bits and some terrific mech sequences where you can pilot a robot and unleash major destruction on your enemies and make debris fall everywhere. Fear 2's graphics look fine, but aren't quite up to what you'd expect from a modern shooter. Some of the lighting is great, but many of the environments don't offer much atmosphere, and the great ambient sound design and chilling soundtrack can't always carry the weak visuals. The upside, if you're playing on a PC, is that most modern systems should run the game quite smoothly. That smoothness certainly comes in handy in multiplayer, where a few familiar game types may offer some brief amusement. There you can also level up and earn new loadout options if you play ranked games. But aside from the Armored Front mode, where team members can pilot one of the giant EPA bots, there's nothing interesting at all here. The maps and mechanics aren't that good, and you don't even get the slow motion variants of the modes like the original Fear offered. So, in Fear 2, you have a horror-themed sequel that, like many horror-themed movie sequels, doesn't live up to the standard set by the original. It is a good shooter, though, with enough variety and quality action to make the 7-hour single-player journey worth the time. If it can retain the fun action of Fear 2, and combine it with the legitimate scares of the first game, perhaps the inevitable third Fear can end the series with a bang rather than a whimper.